I've driven long distances for most of my life. I'm the type of person who doesn't mind empty roads at night. In fact, I used to enjoy them. Until what happened 3 winters ago. It was around 2 a.m., and I was driving through a silent stretch of highway that cuts through a forest. No lights. No houses. Just endless road disappearing into darkness. The kind of place where you can drive for miles without seeing another car. The snow had just stopped falling, so the world felt dead quiet, like the whole highway was holding its breath. About 30 minutes into the drive, I noticed something strange far ahead. At first, I thought it was an animal. But as I got closer, my stomach dropped. There was a man walking in the middle of the highway. Not on the shoulder. Not crossing it. He was walking directly down the center line, slowly, almost peacefully, like he didn't even notice the world around him. He was wearing a long, dark coat, and his hands hung stiffly by his sides. I slowed down, rolled my window just an inch, and called out, "Sir, are you okay?" He didn't react. I flashed my brights. Still nothing. Just this slow, steady walk. A chill ran up my neck. Something felt wrong with the way he moved. Every step looked identical, like he was repeating the same motion over and over. I finally edged around him, keeping my distance. But as I passed, I looked in my side mirror. That's when my heart nearly stopped. He had turned his head. Completely. Not like a normal person turning. His body didn't move. Only his head, rotating in this unnatural, slow glide, until his face was staring directly at me. I couldn't make out much in the dark, but his eyes were wide open. Too wide. And I swear he was smiling. I hit the gas. Hard. For the next 15 minutes, I kept checking my mirror. Nothing behind me, but empty road. Finally, I relaxed a little, telling myself he was probably some confused traveler or someone drunk. But about 20 minutes later, I saw someone ahead again, walking in the middle of the road. The same long coat. The same slow walk. The same stiff arms. It was him. How the hell? I whispered. There was no turnoff. No side road he could have taken. No way he could have gotten ahead of me. This time, I didn't slow down. I swerved into the opposite lane and sped past him. As I passed, I looked in the mirror again. He wasn't turning his head this time. He was already facing me, as if he knew exactly where I'd be. That smile. Those wide, unblinking eyes. I can still see them perfectly. I didn't stop again until I reached a gas station nearly 40 minutes later. I ran inside and told the worker about the man. He stared at me silently for a few seconds, then said, "You're not the first to see him." I froze. He continued, "Happens every winter. Some people say he died around here in a crash. Others say he's something else." I asked him what he meant by something else. He just shook his head and said, "No matter how fast you drive, he always finds a way to get ahead of you." I didn't stay long. And since that night, I refused to drive that stretch of highway after dark. Because every time I picture that man, I feel like someday I'll see him again, walking slowly in the middle of the road, waiting for me to pass, waiting to turn his head one more time. I was coming home from a late shift at work. It was close to 1 a.m. when I merged onto the long rural highway that leads to my town. I'd driven that road 100 times before, so I wasn't nervous about the darkness or loneliness of it. About 10 minutes into the drive, headlights appeared behind me. Nothing strange about that at first, but they stayed close. Too close. I figured the driver wanted to pass, so I moved to the right side a little to signal it was okay to overtake. But the car didn't pass. It just stayed glued to my bumper. After 5 or 6 minutes, I got annoyed and tapped my brakes lightly to warn them off. They braked too. Perfectly. Like they were copying me. Something about that sent a tiny jolt of fear through my chest. I sped up to put some distance between us. The car sped up too. I slowed down again. They slowed down. For the next 15 minutes, they stayed exactly the same distance from me. Not closer, not further. Just locked on. There was no exit, no towns, no other cars. Just the two of us on that pitch-black road. I finally took out my phone and dialed 911. As the call rang, the headlights behind me suddenly swerved to the other lane. I thought they were finally going to pass. But instead, they pulled up right beside me. I turned to look. There were 3 people inside. All of them staring at me. No blinking. No talking. Just staring. Their faces were pale in the headlights. Empty and expressionless like mannequins. I tried not to look, but I could feel their eyes on me. They matched my speed perfectly, driving beside me for nearly a full minute. Then, the driver slowly raised his hand and waved. A slow, deliberate wave, like someone saying goodbye. Then the car suddenly pulled ahead, sped off into the darkness, and disappeared around a bend. The police picked up the call late, and by then, the car was long gone. When they searched the area, they found nothing. No tire marks. No sign of another vehicle. No one matching the description. A state trooper told me something that kept me awake for nights. You're not the first to report that car. Some say it's a gang. Some say it's a stolen car. Others say it's something older than that. Something that follows travelers. Since that night, I can't drive alone in the dark without constantly checking my mirror. Because every so often, I swear I see those headlights again, matching my speed. Waiting. I've always been told not to pick up hitchhikers. But I made the mistake once, and I'll never do it again. It was a rainy evening, and the sun had just gone down. I was driving along a quiet mountain highway, heading home from visiting my brother. Rain hammered the windshield, and fog rolled in thick enough that I could barely see 20 feet ahead. That's when I saw a figure on the side of the road. A young woman, soaked, shivering, holding her arm like she was injured. Against my better judgment, I slowed down and rolled down the window an inch. "Are you all right? Do you need a ride?" She nodded silently. She climbed in, dripping water onto the seat. Her hair covered most of her face, and she kept staring down at her feet. We drove in silence for a while. Something about her breathing made me nervous, slow and shaky, like she was terrified of something. Finally, I asked, "What's your name?" She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, "Why did you leave me here?" My hands tightened on the wheel. I've never seen you before," I said. She slowly turned her head toward me. Her hair slid away from her face, and my stomach dropped. I recognized her, but not from real life. I recognized her from a dream I'd had a few nights earlier. A nightmare where a woman stood outside my house in the rain, staring up at my window. The same soaked hair, the same pale skin. I felt my throat tighten. What is this?" I whispered. She leaned closer, her voice barely audible over the rain. "You said you would come back for me, but you left me in the dark." My eyes filled with tears. I had no idea why. Something about her voice felt ancient, familiar, like she had known me for years. I pulled over. "Please get out," I said, trembling. She looked at me with the saddest expression I'd ever seen. "I waited," she whispered. "I waited for so long." When I blinked, she was gone. The passenger door never opened. The seat was dry. There were no wet footprints. No trace she had ever been there. Just the echo of her voice. I still dream about her sometimes. Always standing in the rain. Always waiting. Always whispering my name. My final story happened when I was 19. I was driving cross-country with my cousin. We took turns behind the wheel while the others slept. Around 3 a.m., it was my turn to drive. My cousin was asleep beside me, snoring lightly. There was barely any traffic, just the long, empty desert highway and the hum of the engine. That's when I saw it. Headlights in the mirror. Bright. Large. Coming fast. Within seconds, a massive semi-truck was right behind me, so close I could barely see its bumper. I cursed and switched lanes to let it pass. But it didn't pass. It switched lanes too. I sped up. It sped up. I slowed down. It slowed down. Soon, it was inches from my back bumper, its engine roaring like thunder. My cousin woke up from the noise and shouted, "What the hell is he doing?" The truck suddenly switched lanes and pulled up beside us. The engine was so loud it vibrated through the car. Both of us turned to look at the driver's window, and both of us froze. There was no one inside. No driver. No passenger. No movement at all. Just an empty cab speeding down the highway. "No, no. No, no," my cousin whispered. Before we could react, the truck surged ahead, nearly clipping us. Then it swerved into our lane, forcing me to slam on the brakes. It kept going, accelerating, until it vanished far ahead in the darkness. We pulled onto the shoulder, both shaking. A few minutes later, a highway patrol car stopped to check on us. We told the officer everything. He didn't look surprised. He sighed and said, "You're the third call this month about that truck." "What is it?" I asked. He looked at the empty highway and said quietly, "Some trucks never stop driving, even after their drivers die."